today. So let me change this to all comments. Chat filter, all messages. There we go. Must be Sunday if I'm here on a Sunday. Must be members only day. That's how smooth my brain is going to function today, I think. That's okay. We're going to wait for some folks to roll in. I thought about doing the Nepali silver needle, but then, oh my gosh. I don't know how to explain. She's like citrusy and like lemony, which is the same, but like fresh cut grass. This is the Kuamon white. Which I probably say that wrong every time. But she's a nice everyday drinker tea. I'm gonna go a little light here, maybe a little less, April. I don't need to push myself. We got woken up at 4:30 this morning and have been awake since, and you know, don't normally wake up that early, and then usually I wake up around 6, but it's crazy how much of a difference between like 4:30 and 6 can make with your cognitive functions. I try to go to bed around 9:30, but before 10. Sometimes it's after that, but try to get to bed before then. And then I usually wake up pretty early. But the thing is, even if I stay up crazy late, I could stay up until 2 in the morning, and it wouldn't matter. My circadian rhythm will wake me up at like 5:45, 6 a.m. So I don't stay up late at all. So let's make some tea. Hey everybody, you're rolling in. Yeah, I don't know how my younger self used to do it. But I mean, I've not been staying up late for a long time, but actually the last time I ever really stayed up late like on purpose was like probably when we were still doing like shop update stuff, and there was just no choice but to like stay up late to get work done, and but yeah, if you're trying to work on your stress levels or anything like that, getting to bed before 10 o'clock is super important, because your primate monkey brain, like after 10 o'clock, your body gets, what they call the second wave. But what that really is your body thinks that something's wrong, because we're not nocturnal animals. We should be asleep. So it's like, oh my God, we're being chased by like a fucking tiger, or, or a warring tribe or something like that. And so it like super jacks up our cortisol levels so we can like escape the danger. But that's why people get their second wind, and it's really, really not good for you. So getting to bed early and waking up kind of earlier are actually pretty healthy for the human body, but I did not appreciate the 4:30 wake up. But we'll recover from that with some tea. And I've just been kind of taking it gentle today, and then after this, online work. That's going to be my life for a while. I just have to get it done. I have to get it done. I'm very like methodically building an entire new website, for the shop, and it'll be nice and fancy looking, and like I know what I'm doing when I'm done, but it's just like one little step at a time. And sometimes my brain gets agitated at that, because like it knows what to do to get it all done, and then it's like you have this pathetic human body that has limitations of time and eating and right, and so it can be a little hard on me sometimes, and it's been like super rainy and stormy out. Ever since basically I recorded the last video, we ended up, let me see if that helps. Oh, it doesn't help. We ended up like ever since then, like it's just been rain and wind and cold. I think that day was when the storm arrived, but I think it's supposed to let up in the next few days. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. Hey everybody, rolling in. I'm just about ready to pour some hot water over my tea, I believe. And I came on a little early, figuring I'd give people a chance to roll in, and I don't know. I've got a lot of stuff in my brain about like, I don't know, the future of this channel and like what to do with my Q&A. Somebody brought that up to me the other day, and I do answer the same questions over and over and over and over and over again, and it doesn't really bother me. My brain is just like, yeah, I have the answer for that. So they were coming at it from the point of like I was probably like super like burnt out on answering the same questions, and I don't really think that's what burns me out with the Q&As or just things in general. I think it just gets boring to me because I am answering the same questions, if that makes sense. It's not the question itself that bothers me or agitates me. It's just that my brain's like, yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And so I'm thinking with the public Q&As, I think I'd like to start making them a little bit more intentional, right? Like, and I'm just thinking out loud while I make my tea before we jump into questions, but like, I really didn't like going live on my computer the other day, but it did actually give me a lot more control of how the questions flowed through. When I realized that my new camera that I bought to make those like nature walk videos, when I plugged it into my computer the other day, you know, to pull the videos off of it, it had I could either select like use it, I could use it as a webcam, and I was like, oh, so I might try that. Just to give like a better quality video, and be able to control the questions that are coming in on, like, I get like a side panel view on YouTube live on a computer that I don't get with this, right? This is on my phone and I just see all the questions down here. And so I feel like I'd be able to sort through better because I have a bigger view. Like, as you comment on my phone, it just kicks it up, and I maybe see 3 or 4 comments at a time. But on a computer screen, I have like the wall of comments, right? And if it's going fast, it can still push like things out of the way. But I have like more of an input from my brain to pick a question out that I haven't answered before, you know? And so I think that I have to start doing that. I think it'll make the Q&As like easier on me, right? I think that I won't have to push my brain to answer the same thing over and over again. And by easier on me, I mean easier on my body. Like, it's not really hard on my brain, it's hard on my physical body, you know? But yeah, so I've just been kind of, I don't know, I'm in this huge transition period for sure in my life in general, and I'm kind of just like slowly trying to pick everything apart without burning it down. Right, you know? And so, and I have a lot of like stressful irons in the fire right now that I can't neglect, which are by proxy not, are like getting in the way of like my ability to do the things that I want to do, stupid responsibilities and such. And so I'm working through it. I'll fucking thrash and rage for a while, come through to the other side, and I'll do what I'm gonna do for, you know, however many years, and then I'll be like, actually, let's completely deconstruct this again. You know? So that's just kind of where I'm at right now. It's been a really weird transitional spring, and I don't know if it's because I'm about to turn 40 or what, but you know, at least with 40, if this is my midlife crisis, I'm doing all right. You know, just wanting to like make my life easier, and making sure that I get the change I need without burning down my support structure, which is myself. You know, that's a pretty decent midlife crisis, I suppose. She turned out like really nice and clear there. Not like clear like there's no color, but just like super like crisp looking. Somebody said, I love your dreads and that braid and your whole outfit. Thank you very much. Today I was like, I'm fucking exhausted. I'm going to look pretty. I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it gives me like a excuse to like, I don't know how to explain it, like stop and be cozy or something. That is tasty. Okay, question. I'm making capsules for liver health. I have milk thistle and dandelion root. Should I add anything else? You know, those are pretty solid. You could get brave and add some tudka, which is like actually like a bile salt that helps your liver function. And then on the dandelion root and like small on like the tudka and the milk thistle, because they like push your liver like and just make you feel gross when it starts like functioning too quickly. But I mean, you could also just go with the herbs that you're planning on. That's a solid stack too. Yeah, I think that milk thistle, you know, she's talked about a lot. She's talked about a lot for liver support in general. But what I don't like is that herbalists don't often talk about like how horrible it can make you feel at first if you don't go really slow. It's essentially like a detox reaction. Now, I don't want you to think about it like it's cleaning your liver, like it's a filter, because you're not a car. It doesn't need to have its oil changed or anything like that. But what it really does is it starts like kicking up your liver's capacity to do everything that it does, which includes like putting nutrients into your blood from your digestive tract, recycling bile, all that type of stuff. But part of that is recycling toxins. But most of the time, people end up actually feeling sick from the push of bile, but they believe that it's because they're getting the bad stuff out of their liver. And that's not really what's happening. It's just that, like, if you rapidly increase your digestive abilities, it can make you feel really pukey, gross, like you're gonna shit your brains out and all that type of stuff. So go really slow with it. You could even put like just small amounts in the capsules and then like build up the amount that you add to the capsule, right? Okay, let's see. Question: do you know how I can use cedar, yapon, berry? We're having to remove a lot of these, and I'm wondering how I can repurpose them as my partner's inner prio just wants to burn them all. So I want to say, now I could be 100% wrong, but my brain says, is beautyberry the same thing as Schisandra? Don't they have interchangeable names? I don't know. I could be wrong. Cedar is really fantastic topically for any sort of skin ailment you have, right? So you could make an infusion with that. You could even boil the bark and like breathe in the fumes if you have like a really bad chest infection. So there's lots of medicine there to be had with cedar. She makes a nice smudge too, you know. But it's also like you could make a tincture or an infused witch hazel and use that to keep bugs away. You know, you could put cedar literally in your dresser drawers to keep bugs away. You know, that's why people had like chests of cedar and things like that. And so that's a pretty good option. Okay, question. I have had a hysterectomy 10 years ago, and it seems the last several years I'm so bloated all the time and I look pregnant. I'm miserable. I'm cutting out bread now or trying. Any other ideas? Well, it's probably more along the lines of like you need to work on your gut health, right? So if you haven't watched my milk kefir video or my water kefir video, I would highly suggest going and checking those out. You could look into making homemade L-reuteri yogurt. You could start working with ginger every day, but like get yourself some real ginger and make a tea out of it, you know, like with fresh ginger root. She's good for bloating and stuff, but like if you're using her consistently, she starts helping with like your motility, which means she gets you going to the bathroom every day. And you could also start working with something selectively like bentonite clay in the mornings before food, and just kind of start working on like mopping up all the endotoxins in there. And but I would really definitely go check out my milk kefir or my water kefir videos. Store bought won't work. That stuff is fake. It's lab cultured. It doesn't have the same strains in it. But I think that that would probably help you. Now you have to go slow. I don't want you to just start making milk kefir and pounding it right. You'll get pretty sick. But you know, like you could have SIBO or SIFO if you feel like grains are triggering it more, and then you could also look into like L-reuteri yogurt. There is L-reuteri naturally in milk kefir, but not as much as if you made the yogurt yourself. But with milk kefir, you get like 80 plus beneficial bacteria and yeast strains, and they'll be unique to your bioregion eventually while you're making it, which is really neat because like our bioregion is inherently more capable of healing us, right? I do milk kefir daily. Let's see, is that the same person? Let me see. Oh, okay, so you do the milk kefir daily, and it's still causing that. And have you been like consistently on it for a long time? Like, are you working like it up? I wonder if like more might be helpful, or if just going over to the L-reuteri yogurt might be beneficial. To see if that helps. Okay. No, you did not miss much if you're just showing up. I've only been on for about 14 minutes, and I think I've only been answering questions for about 10 minutes. Question: can you please republish your book about your backstory? Love you and everything you have gifted us with. I found your last year and have consumed every video. Yeah, I need to. I know I need to. I'm like, I need to edit it, but nobody can help me edit it, just to put that out there, because it's like people don't know, like it's the way I talk when I write, especially because that book was from a long time ago, is like if you edit it in the way that people want to edit it, it will remove my voice, if that makes sense. But I also know that there are some like errors in there from when I tried to help somebody. Somebody tried to help me. More curious about they were more interested in like making it their book. I don't know. I need to just publish it and be like, this is how it is. It has grammatical errors in it. Think of it more like art than a book, you know. And so I need to, you know. Um, but yeah, I definitely need to. I probably should. It's so expensive. I self-publish. I don't have like a publisher or anything, and so I could probably go do a handful of books. And if my husband reminds me to do that, I could do that today. Okay, so question. It seems like you do so much all the time, and I'm grateful for all of it. When and what do you do to decompress? Well, usually I have a fucking meltdown. No, usually yeah, no, I mean, I don't, I wish I could say that I was like perfectly put together and that I had like this amazing like self-care thing in place, but usually it's like I ask my husband to like take me for a drive upriver, even if I don't get out and walk, just like the act of getting out of the house, you know. Sometimes I just stare at the TV. People don't want to hear that shit. They want to, I mean, I'm not saying that you don't want to hear it, but sometimes it's like herbalists in general, like, they, it's our own fault, typically like promote the concept of like super romantic and put together, and you see all the aesthetic videos, but I'm like, sometimes I just have to like brain rot before I go to bed. That way I'm out of my brain. But I'm really visual spatial, so sometimes watching TV like really helps me not be in my brain. I do a little bit of like, I've been getting into like pastel drawing, although I haven't for a while because I'm super stressed out. Sometimes I just watch videos, you know, on YouTube. Sometimes I do beadwork. Sometimes I like fucking watch like random like real person ASMR stuff, but not like the whispery shit. I like to watch people get their like hair done or like try, you know, like real type stuff. Um, but yeah, I don't have any like anything like super magical right now, and it depends on the season of my life. Certain times you ask me, I could be like, "Oh yeah, I do all this stuff," and other times I'm like, "I don't fucking know." Sometimes I work literally until I go to bed. I'm like, "Oh my god, I can't be on this computer screen any longer." It just depends on what's going on in my life, you know? Um, okay. Question. Constant popping in all of my joints when I move in pain. Finger deformities. How can I support this? Well, it sounds like you really need to start building some collagen back up. And I've talked about this before, but like the best way to build collagen is to eat lots of vitamin C and lots of gelatin so you can produce glutathione, which is a precursor to collagen. There was actually quite a few studies that came out where like if people took like pretty high doses of vitamin C alongside like a lot of gelatin, that within like 8 to 12 weeks they saw a like actual like cartilage rebuild for like arthritis and stuff like that. You could also work in like bone broth and all that type of stuff. I would favor working with gelatin and things like that over just straight up collagen. Your body doesn't really utilize it the way that you would hope it would. You just need to make it on your own. Question. I've noticed that when I eat sugar, my muscles hurt. Do you have any idea why this might be happening? Yeah, there's probably something going on from like a metabolic standpoint, right? You might have to like look at your genetics, but so if you're eating sugar and your muscles are starting to hurt, some sort of acid, whether it's glucose or otherwise, something is building up in your muscles, right? So for me, I live on the other opposite of the spectrum where my body can't utilize long chain fatty acids. So if I eat a lot of like those types of fats, my muscles will start to hurt because I can't shuttle it into my cells and it like builds up. And so that is just something that I would look into. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you shouldn't eat carbohydrates. You just need to kind of find the break in the system, what nutrient you're missing, what mutation you have. But it is a key. It is a key. It is like a clue that you should look into, and just kind of like deep dive into that, because it might open up a whole world of like aha for you in regards of like other symptoms and things that you're dealing with. Um, Question. Question, suggestions for herbs, internal, external, for postpartum healing. Yeah, one herb that I really, really like is milky oats. Milky oats tincture for this. From the emotional nervous system aspect, it's been shown to reduce the odds of postpartum depression, right? Because you love the little thing that just came out of you, but you've just been ripped in half. It's screaming and you're not sleeping and you're exhausted, and so from that aspect it really helps. But then I would make sure that you are getting lots of carbohydrates, like high quality complex carbs, squash, greens, root vegetables, things like that, on top of like plenty of like quick carbs, like fruits, honey, maple syrup, and then lots of protein as well. All those things are going to really help your body recover and heal a lot faster. And then herb wise, you could start working with something like nettle infusion would be a pretty good option. Those would all be things that could really, really support your body internally. Externally, after about 3 or 4 days, assuming you don't have a whole bunch of stitches, you could start doing sitz baths with comfrey infusion. Whole lot, but a little would go a long way to help heal things up. But you want to make sure the healing has already begun, because you don't to comfrey heals things so quickly from her allotonin content that she heals from the outside in, but your body heals from the inside out. So if you make a wound cover itself before the inside was ready, you can kind of cause an infection. After that, about a week after giving birth, assuming again that there isn't like a huge amount of like wound or tearing or anything like that, you could start working with yarrow tea in the sitz bath or a yarrow spray to really speed the healing up. But I say wait a little while because it can make it burn like on a fresh birth wound, right? But usually in a week you're healed up enough that you kind of just need a little extra something going on down there, and it won't cause a whole lot of pain. Okay, so question, or just statement. Any new plants, veggies that you're growing this year? Yeah, I decided to put in a bunch of like lowland blueberries. I'm going with a bunch of perennial kale varieties that I haven't grown before. I put in horseradish and sunchokes. What's funny is I'm going after things that are invasive. I want it to just take over my garden. And then I will have this big perennial garden that I don't have to do anything with besides harvest from or stick other things in there if I want to, right? And I've also got like a new rhubarb that I'm growing that I'm going to put in. I'm going to have like, I've just decided, like for my own well-being, that I want like 90% of my garden to be perennial, and then just a small amount of things like tomatoes, zucchini, squash, things that I need to like plant myself every year, but won't take up huge amount of my time to start or plant, and everything else is just maintaining. Right, and so I'm really going after like all of the perennial collard greens and kales and lots of greens. A sea kale, I'm pretty excited about the sea kale. Survive through our winters here, so can the other perennials. But I'm also very excited about the blueberries because these are like lowland variety, and they'll just kind of creep and spread. And I got 4 different varieties that are meant for heavy snow loads, and I kind of just want it to like just take over. And then that'll just be that, because I think that's the only way that I'm going to get rid of the star thistle. It's the only way, and I just have to like outcrowd them, and like throw all rules to the fucking wind and just shove as much as I can in there that's aggressive, and then it's just like, okay, you can't even fit in there anymore, star thistle. Okay, question. Thick yellow mucus buildup for months and no infection. What could be the cause of this? Well, I don't know where you're saying the mucus buildup is at, but if it's in your body, obviously, if it's in your nose, your chest, there's probably an underlying infection. They just haven't caught it, right? Just because if you get tested for an infection, just because they say there is an infection, it doesn't mean that there isn't one. It means that it didn't pop on their particular test, right? But because usually yellow is infection across the board, right? And so I would consider working with something like reishi mushroom. Right, reishi mushroom would be a good option, but also adding in nettle infusion to help clear out that mucus, and then of course a mullein to help break it up. right? And so it would probably like help root it out. You could also make like my thyme and onion tea. It's just like a thyme and onion broth basically with honey added. There's a lot of antiviral properties there too, but it's probably bacterial. It's probably bacterial more than it is viral. I used to get sinus infections horrendously as a kid. I got them so much as a kid that I thought it was just like one of those things that happened to you, like losing a tooth. Right? Nobody told me that it wasn't normal, and I didn't get antibiotics for it ever. I would just go like 3 months out of every winter, like with horrendous amounts of like infected mucus coming out of my nose. At any given time, when I never had a tissue available, is when it would finally break free, right? But I feel like it made me more robust because I've never gotten a sinus infection as an adult again. But yeah, you could also start working with like yarrow tincture on a regular basis. Might help clear it out if it's definitely bacterial. Okay. Question. Sorry for the follow-up. Which testosterone test did you get to check my levels? And where do you get yours done through online? I was looking at walk-in labs and there's so many to pick from. Yeah. So for the hormones one, I like the Everywell test. Women's test. It just happens to also test for hormone. It'll also test your cortisol, and it will test your progesterone and your estrogen, and give you, if you keep using their test, they give you a chart to see your progress. It's a little spendy, but if you added all those to your cart on walk-in lab, it actually ends up being about $100 more at walk-in labs than it is just ordering the test kit that they send to your house, and that's from Everywell. Okay, so let's see. Somebody says good choice. I've been targeting perennials too. Yeah, yeah. I love to garden, but I have just discovered over the years that actually I'm very stressed out by it, like the timing and getting things right, and like I don't know. I put a lot of pressure on myself, obviously, but I'm like if I just I'm like, I also don't like do well with house plants. Like I think I'm just too fucking wild. I think I would like my garden to mimic like the plants that exist in the wild. I think that, I'm gonna start bringing in lots of like wild plants that are around me. Like I can just go across the field by 100 yards or so and take some wild strawberries and plant them there. I can just, so I've just decided that's what I'm gonna do. Um, Question. Having an adrenal crisis. Is there anything natural I can try? Pharmacy is out of rescue medication shots. You could actually take adrenal. You'd have to, like, buy that online. You can get, like, adrenal gland of, like, beef and pork and stuff like that. It depends. Like, if you're in an adrenal crisis because it's over-functioning or under-functioning. Right, but that's pretty serious. So, like, if you are in a genuine adrenal crisis and the pharmacy is out, do not be afraid to go to the emergency room because you can die from an adrenal crisis, right? But then you could go and get what you need taken care of, but then you can order yourself some, like, desiccated adrenal gland. That way you have it. That way you have it on hand for if it runs out again, right? Let's see. Almost lost that. Question. I work in an ER department in Palm Springs. Yesterday, a man bombed, oh yeah, that IFV building across the street. I'm drinking nourishing oat straw infusion. What else should I do for me? Oh my god, that's so crazy that you were right next to that, Gina. I was reading about that, and I'm just tired of humans. Anyone else just like want to move to a little island? Right? And be like, no, unvetted humans allowed. But yeah, if you have, like nourishing infusion of oats is a good place to start. If you happen to have chamomile, she might be a little bit more like instantly calming for your nervous system. Skullcap, lemon balm, any of that is going to help calm your nervous system down. If you have the capacity to, just getting outside in nature, getting near water, if you're able to like go to the beach or anything like that, especially if you know where there's like a quieter beach or an area that there's not a lot of tourists or anything like that at, it can really just kind of help recenter your nervous system and help you feel safe. Especially if you're able to like bring a comforting type snack that you like with you while you're in nature eating that. It tells your body that you're safe. Right, and it kind of helps you recenter and like be in a new area versus the area where your brain is like replaying over and over at, right? Yet if you have all those herbs, it's definitely a great place to start with for sure, and just kind of going to help your parasympathetic nervous system down regulate. And if you can like make yourself some tea, cold brew or warm, and like take it to the beach or nature or somewhere you like, that would be like even more beneficial, you know. Um, okay, so she says, somebody says, I have the same issue. The wild and the gardens are two things. Yeah, well, and also where we live, like the soil is just, we have Palus loam, and they call it loam, but it's not. It's just like a ton of silt plus clay. So it's like pure concrete. And even though I've been working on the soil for 5 years, adding in like literal tons of like my own like cow shit, things like that, and alfalfa, and just bringing it all together, it just doesn't matter. It's very, very hard for me to grow anything without huge amounts of amendment. And now I've gotten my beds to a better place in the past few years, but I think perennials are just tougher. So if I put them in there, and that's why I was like, I'm going with the horseradish and the sunchokes. They're going to break through that soil. They don't care. Right, and I'm going with all the things that will just, and I've got plenty of pine trees around here, so the blueberries, when I plant them, I'm just going to give them huge amounts of pine needles under them, and just kind of let it all take over, which is funny because we have like metric tons of huckleberries here, which are just a type of blueberry. Which is, I think it's funny when people freak out over huckleberries. They're like, oh, and they're paying like $100 a gallon or more, and I'm like, y'all know it's just a blueberry, right? They taste okay, but like sometimes blueberries are sweeter and taste better. If we don't get a lot of rain in the spring, the huckleberries are actually kind of sour even when they're ripe. Like, and I'm just like, I don't know. I grew up around it, so I'm over it. But also, here's a tip. Huckleberry jelly is exceptionally expensive if you buy it online, but in Europe they call it bilberry. And it's not as expensive. So you can go online right now and buy bilberry jam and pay half the amount that you would for huckleberry jam. And it's the same damn plant. It's the same berry. I think that's funny. Um, okay, so let's see. I lost that one. Is my pastor, and I lost the pleasure in going out in society, and when I do, it's hard to shop because I'm always on alert and scared of society, even church. So it sounds like you're having some pretty serious social anxiety and probably a touch of agoraphobia, and I understand. I lived with severe CPTSD level like disability, couldn't work, couldn't do anything for a long time. And at the end, it like accumulated in like agoraphobia where I couldn't even drive. Like my kids from my cabin in the woods to their bus stop literally had nobody in between it. I was on a mountain logging road, and I had agoraphobia just going from there to there because I might run into a person, right? And so I really, really understand where you're coming from. If you haven't, like, I know that every body is physically different, but our needs are the same. Like, if you're the type of person that's like under eating by chance, like if you kind of like are nervous enough that you don't eat, you might consider increasing your carbohydrates. You really need carbohydrates to calm down your nervous system. You could do that alongside of working with like some nervines. Like, I feel like skullcap would be a good option for you, but also motherwort. Motherwort is very, helps you kind of step back and feel safe and like step out of that like panic cycle, right? And then you might look into like what they call like brain training, like retraining how everything is wired. And ultimately, if you feel like it's to the point where you're not able to exist anymore, you can do all those things, but also consider getting a prescription for low dose ketamine. It could probably change your life because it completely rewires your neural pathways. Like, it helps you like be like, hey, this isn't danger and we can take this different path now. If I would have had ketamine available to me in that form all those decades ago, I wouldn't have had to suffer through like a decade of benzodiazepine use. Which honestly made things worse because, by the way, you're not supposed to use benzos long term. It says that right in the pamphlet, but doctors prescribe them that way anyways. And the side effects of long term use of benzos, by the way, is anxiety and agoraphobia. It's fucked up. It's really fucked up. Question, how does nettle seed support thyroid and how long is it safe to take for? It has a lot of the same compounds that are in nettle herself, so it's very nutrition based, except for she's a little bit more like zingy, right? So for consistent daily use, I would go with nettle infusion every day of the week over nettle seed. Nettle seed, you could start working with her in small amounts, either in tincture form or ground up. And I would try just a little bit daily to see how you feel. And then I would probably switch to like if you say you start daily and that's how you feel, well, if I take it every other day and I still feel fine, okay. If I take it every 3 days and I still feel fine, okay. Well, if I take it every 4 days, I start to feel sluggish. Does that make sense? Then you're like, okay, well, I'll just take it for every 3 days. Right. But usually, I mean, I think that I would lean more heavily on like a seaweed infusion for iodine than nettle seed itself, or a combination of both, right? Ultimately, our thyroid needs iodine to function, and there's a lot of things that interfere with the absorption and deplete us of iodine, especially if you don't eat a lot of seafood, or things like that. And even iodized salt doesn't really give you enough. Um, let's see. I've been thinking about buying and planting boysenberry because it's very expensive and so hard to get. I used to be able to buy boysenberry cobbler, but can't find it anywhere, and it's so good. Yeah. Another alternative would be, oh my god, my brain just dropped it. I'm gonna plant them myself. They grow all over on trees. They look. I'm not gonna fucking find it. My brain is like, you don't know the name of that plant that you have on the way. Marionberry. There it is. Another good option is a marionberry tree. They grow a lot faster. They're very similar. They have like honestly the same flavor profile. You know, once you plant them, it's crazy. You can have fruit within the first year or so. And it's a big tree, and they often grow more than people can use. But either way, it's not a bad idea to plant like the things that you enjoy and you use a lot of. And that's one thing that I'm working towards with the perennial garden, and like had to have like a moment of realization with myself that over the last decade plus, half of what I grow in the garden, it's not that I don't use it, but it's like not the thing that I use the most. And so I started really like looking at like, what do we actually eat on a regular basis? Well, I'll just grow that. Everything else is supplementary that I could buy elsewhere, because we don't eat enough of it that I need to worry about having a lot of it. But like, I eat a lot of greens. We eat a lot of kale. I like a lot of fruit, things like that. Question: my daughter has persistent CBD. My daughter has, and I don't know why my brain skipped that part. My daughter has insane seizures, failed 10 meds, on keto diet, but they persist. CBD, THC, no help. Have you done a serious genetic screening? I would do it. If you haven't yet, do a very serious genetic screening, especially for things that are in the fat and like energy metabolism area. Right, I've been learning a lot about this, discovering my own mutation, and it's crazy how often like things like seizures are just not fixed when it ends up being like a carnitine deficiency or CBDIC issues with B12. And so if you can't get a referral to a geneticist, you can also order your own. I like the sequencing.com option. It's expensive. It's like $400, but it's a full genetic panel, full. And so you can even take that information to a doctor and then be like, I would like you to now give me a referral to like a geneticist, a medical geneticist, a genetic counselor, anything like that. There are some genetic counselor options online that will also send you in like genetic testing. But I would listen, if anybody has a weird health thing that nobody can figure out and they haven't screened your genetics, do it as soon as you can, because there are so many answers to be found when we look at our genetics, and sometimes it's stupid simple. Like, I was dying, and I know I don't look great right now, but I'm like in the midst of like stabilizing my system, but also my daughter was really unwell, and then I was digging deeper into my genetics, and I just kind of came across the carnitine issue after I realized I was low on my blood panel, even though I eat a ton of meat, and so it shouldn't be low, and then boom, it all fell into place. I'm like, holy shit, we have this particular mutation, and while we're lucky that we weren't sicker, some people end up very sick. Some people end up with wasting muscles, seizures, all kinds of stuff, and it might not be the same mutation for you, but if I would have gone to the doctor, they'd have been like, we don't know why, old, going through menopause or something like that, you know, like. And so don't be afraid to dig into it yourself. uh, Genetic testing was done, but a couple years ago, need to retest. They found nothing. She's on carnitine. So is she already on carnitine? Did they already say that she had carnitine, primary carnitine deficiency, where she's wasting it? And what type of testing did they do? Like, that's really interesting. So she's already on it. Like, are you putting it on her, like her on it? Like, are you testing her carnitine levels? So like, and I'll wait for you to answer. But like, if they put her on carnitine, or if you put her on carnitine without looking at genetics, and she has any sort of transporter or wasting mutation, which they're both different, she can actually build up too much like acetylcarnitine in her body, and that can cause seizures too, right? And so it's kind of like a balance. They put her on carnitine because she was on ACTH, and it causes muscle wasting. Yeah. So, but did you ever ask them, or have you asked them if they've tested her for the carnitine mutation or transport mutation? Because it can kind of be insidious. So they have her on it for medication purposes, but if they didn't actually test to see if she had that mutation. So, okay, I'm just going to back up here a second, because we're going to talk about carnitine now. I have two fucked up mutations with carnitine. I have a wasting mutation, which means like my kidney makes me piss it out all the time, but I also have a transport mutation, which means that my body has a hard time utilizing it, so it builds up acetylcholine into my muscles, and I'm actually like deep into the research phase of this for myself. But I know that like if they have her on that because of a medication, but they didn't check her transport issues, it could be building up into acetylcholine or acetylcarnitine in her muscles and in her brain, and causing all kinds of neurological issues. So even though they put her on it, they still need to be screened for that, and to make sure that she doesn't have a transport defect. And the thing that's been really frustrating for me is when I'm researching it for myself, is that they often don't look at these two things in conjunction, right? They originally put her on it because of the keto diet. Oh my gosh. So, okay. I would just ask them to do a carnitine mutation. So, okay, let's assume that she has a carnitine mutation. One of the worst things that you can do is be on a keto diet, because for the way this works is carnitine is a part of your fat metabolism, which creates ATP. Carnitine is a non-essential amino acid that puts the fat into your cells to use for energy. It's a backup energy source to glucose. And if you have carnitine transport issues, you cannot utilize fat for energy very effectively. And so the long-chain fatty acids build up in your body and cause severe oxidation, which leads to things like seizures, muscle wasting, heart defects, all kinds of stuff, like heart attacks, all types of stuff. And so if they didn't check her for any of those carnitine mutations before the keto diet or before putting her on carnitine, that is so scary. And there are more mutations than just the basic ones. So I don't know. You already had them do a genetic testing, but I would consider, like, as your parent, doing your own independent genetic testing, because you will have access to the data to look through it. Because I've had too many doctors tell me too many times, everything looks fine. We recently took my daughter to the emergency room because I couldn't stop her vomiting. She was going through all these cyclical vomiting cycles, and I couldn't stop it, and her blood pressure was dropping, and I was like, I need you to test her potassium. Please test her potassium. And so they test her potassium. This lady comes back and says her potassium's fine. I, being who I am, pull her labs the next day from the fucking portal for patients. Her potassium was not fine. In fact, it was very low, and they should have given her potassium. I discovered it was the carnitine mutation that she inherited from me. But I'm just saying, like, trust your doctors, but also verify. Right, and so consider doing your own genetic testing. And I know it's all overwhelming and you're like in the midst of this with your kid, but like never stop digging, because I think that you are capable of figuring it out if they can't figure it out. But yeah, so I'm just like, yeah, so there's a transport defect and there's a wasting mutation as well. There's two different ones, you know, and it's something to certainly look into, because it's crazy, especially if she was already having muscle wasting issues. That is such a huge trigger, like a huge red flag for anything carnitine. Question. I'm a member, although I still do not receive any of your notifications. I selected all. Any idea? I'm bummed when I miss your lives because YouTube sucks. Honestly, they straight up admit that they only let about 10 to 20% of my subscribers in general know anything. They don't let everybody know when I upload a video. They don't know when people go live. So the best thing to do, honestly, is to set an alarm on your phone. For like the day of my member live, which is always at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So you can just figure that to your time zone, set an alarm, and then you'll know that I'll be there. You know, I mean, I can be like 5 or 10 minutes early or late, but I'm always here at noon on Sundays, unless I'm not. And then I make a post. I make a community post letting people know that I won't be able to make it. So I'm looking at the clock and I realize that my daughter actually has to get to her art class, and it's about a half an hour drive to town, so I better get off. Thank you so much for being here, folks. Thank you for supporting me, for being a member. It makes the difference in the world to me. It really does make a huge difference in my life. For anybody, a future person watching this, if you'd like to support my capacity to be a real human, if you want to get in on these more personal one-on-one Q&As for members only, become a member. You can join for literally 99 cents a month to get access to the members Q&A and early videos. And make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications, and share. Sharing is super important because it helps other people realize that they can take their own health into their own hands. Helps get my work out there and tells the algorithm that I'm a pretty cool person. So thanks so much for watching, folks, and I'll see you next time. Bye.